One moment, one insult, one careless comment has destroyed more lives than years of hard work, not because the words were powerful, but because the reaction was the fastest way to lose control is to give someone else control over your emotions. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why truly powerful people rarely react the way everyone expects, and why their silence often carries more weight than someone else's anger. Before we begin, answer this honestly in the comments. When someone disrespects you, what's your first instinct? To react or to stay calm? Type react or calm. Most people believe power means winning every argument. It doesn't. Real power begins with self-control. Anyone can shout. Anyone can insult. Anyone can lose their temper. Very few people can remain composed while everyone else loses theirs. The moment someone provokes you, they are testing something far more important than your patience. They are testing your discipline. If they can control your emotions, they can influence your decisions. That is why emotional control is one of the greatest forms of strength. A calm mind sees opportunities that an angry mind never notices. Before responding, ask yourself one question. Is this person offering honest criticism or simple disrespect? There is an important difference. Constructive criticism helps you improve. Disrespect exists only to provoke, belittle, or gain a reaction. Wise people never confuse the two. They learn from truth and ignore unnecessary noise. If this message is helping you build stronger emotional discipline, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It helps more people develop confidence, wisdom, and lasting self-control, and you'll never miss future lessons like this. Never let your ego become your advisor. Ego demands immediate revenge. Wisdom asks whether the response is even necessary. Not every insult deserves your attention. Not every opinion deserves your explanation. Sometimes the strongest move is refusing to participate. Powerful people also understand the importance of boundaries. Forgiveness does not require continued access. Respect does not mean tolerating repeated disrespect. If someone consistently ignores your standards, limit their influence over your life. You teach people how to treat you by what you consistently accept. And then focus on what truly matters: your growth, your discipline, your purpose, your success. Nothing frustrates those who underestimate you more than watching you continue to succeed without becoming distracted by their negativity. Remember this. Winning an argument may satisfy your pride for a moment. Winning control over yourself transforms your entire life. If this message changed the way you think, share it with someone who values strength over ego. And always remember, the most powerful response to disrespect is not uncontrolled anger. It is the quiet confidence of someone who refuses to let another person's behavior determine their character, their decisions, or their future. The first and greatest sign of real power is not physical strength, social status, or the ability to dominate others. It is the ability to control your own emotions before you respond. Anyone can react immediately when they feel insulted, ignored, or disrespected. Anger, frustration, and pride naturally push people toward quick decisions. However, the strongest individuals understand that emotions are temporary, while the consequences of emotional reactions can last for years. A single moment of uncontrolled anger can damage relationships, destroy opportunities, and create problems that could have been avoided with patience and self-control. When someone disrespects you, they often expect an emotional reaction. They may hope to provoke you into arguing, losing your temper, or making a mistake. The moment you react without thinking, you allow them to influence your behavior. Instead of remaining in control of yourself, your actions become determined by someone else's words. This is why emotional discipline is a form of personal freedom. When you control your emotions, you decide how to respond instead of allowing another person's behavior to dictate your choices. Controlling your emotions does not mean pretending you never feel hurt, disappointed, or angry. Every person experiences these emotions. The difference lies in what happens next. Emotionally disciplined people pause before acting. They give themselves enough time to think clearly, understand the situation, and choose the response that best serves their long-term goals. Sometimes that response is a calm conversation. Sometimes it is setting a firm boundary. Other times it is choosing silence because not every insult deserves attention. The power lies in making a conscious decision rather than reacting impulsively. This habit also improves your judgment. Strong emotions often narrow your perspective and make immediate satisfaction seem more important than lasting results. A calm mind, however, considers consequences. It asks whether responding will solve the problem, strengthen the relationship, or simply create unnecessary conflict. This thoughtful approach allows you to protect your reputation while remaining true to your principles. Every moment of self-control strengthens your confidence because it proves that your character is stronger than your impulses. Over time, people begin to recognize your calmness under pressure as a sign of maturity and reliability. More importantly, you develop trust in yourself because you know that your decisions are guided by wisdom rather than temporary emotion. Real power is never measured by how loudly you react to disrespect, but by how effectively you maintain control over yourself when others attempt to take that control away. One of the greatest signs of emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize the difference between criticism and disrespect. Many people react to every negative comment as though it were a personal attack, while others ignore valuable feedback because they assume every disagreement is meant to insult them. Both reactions can limit personal growth. Powerful individuals understand that not every uncomfortable conversation is an act of disrespect. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from honest criticism delivered with good intentions. The challenge is learning to distinguish between someone trying to help you improve and someone simply trying to provoke an emotional reaction. Constructive criticism focuses on behavior, decisions, or performance rather than attacking your value as a person. It usually comes with the intention of encouraging growth, solving a problem, or helping you see something you may have overlooked. Although it may feel uncomfortable to hear, constructive criticism is often specific, respectful, and useful. People who genuinely care about your development are willing to point out weaknesses because they want to see you become stronger. Instead of becoming defensive, emotionally mature people listen carefully, evaluate the message objectively, and apply the advice if it aligns with reality. Disrespect, on the other hand, has a different purpose. Instead of encouraging improvement, it seeks to belittle, embarrass, or provoke. It often relies on insults, mockery, personal attacks, or dismissive behavior rather than thoughtful observations. The goal is rarely to help you grow. It is often to gain attention, establish dominance, or trigger an emotional response. Responding impulsively to this type of behavior usually gives the other person exactly what they wanted. Wise individuals recognize this and refuse to let unnecessary negativity dictate their emotions or decisions. Learning to separate criticism from disrespect also protects your confidence. If you treat every disagreement as an attack, you become overly defensive and miss opportunities to improve. If you tolerate genuine disrespect by calling it honesty, you allow unhealthy behavior to continue unchecked. Emotional intelligence requires balance. You remain open to feedback while maintaining strong boundaries against behavior that repeatedly violates your dignity. Before reacting to someone's words, ask yourself what their intention appears to be. Are they offering a solution, or are they only creating conflict? Are they challenging your ideas respectfully, or are they attacking your character? These questions create the space needed to respond wisely instead of emotionally. Over time, this ability strengthens your judgment, improves your relationships, and allows you to grow from useful criticism while confidently refusing to be controlled by meaningless disrespect. One of the greatest differences between emotionally reactive people and truly powerful individuals is the way they respond to conflict. Most people allow their ego to take control the moment they feel disrespected. They become determined to prove themselves, win the argument, or deliver an immediate response that satisfies their pride. While this reaction may provide temporary emotional relief, it often creates long-term consequences. Powerful people understand that every response has a cost, and they refuse to let their ego make decisions that should be guided by wisdom. Instead of reacting impulsively, they respond with strategy, choosing the action that best serves their long-term goals rather than their immediate emotions. Responding with strategy begins by asking a simple question: what outcome do I actually want? If your goal is to protect your reputation, strengthen your position, or preserve your peace of mind, an emotional outburst rarely helps. Anger may feel powerful in the moment, but it often weakens your judgment. A strategic response, however, is based on observation, patience, and self-control. Sometimes the most effective response is speaking calmly and directly. Other times it is allowing silence to communicate confidence. In certain situations, the wisest decision is to remove yourself completely instead of continuing a pointless conflict. Strategy means selecting the response that creates the greatest long-term benefit rather than the greatest short-term satisfaction. The ego constantly demands recognition. It wants to defend every criticism, answer every insult, and prove every doubter wrong. Wisdom understands that not every challenge deserves your attention. Some people seek conflict simply because they enjoy provoking emotional reactions. The moment you engage on their terms, you allow them to control the direction of the conversation. Strategic individuals recognize these situations and refuse to waste valuable time and emotional energy on battles that offer no meaningful reward. Responding strategically also strengthens your influence. People naturally respect those who remain composed under pressure because calmness communicates confidence. A thoughtful response demonstrates that your decisions are guided by reason rather than impulse. It shows that you value your principles more than your pride and your future more than winning a single argument. Every response you choose either strengthens your reputation or weakens it. When you consistently respond with patience, discipline, and clear purpose, people begin to see you as dependable and emotionally mature. More importantly, you develop the habit of making decisions based on your values instead of your emotions. Over time, this disciplined approach becomes one of your greatest sources of personal power, allowing you to maintain control of yourself even when others are trying to take that control away. Setting firm boundaries is one of the clearest expressions of self-respect because it communicates that your time, energy, and dignity have value. Many people mistakenly believe that protecting boundaries requires becoming aggressive, argumentative, or intimidating. In reality, the strongest boundaries are established through calm consistency rather than emotional confrontation. You do not need to raise your voice, threaten others, or constantly defend yourself. Instead, you simply make it clear through your words and actions what behavior you will accept and what behavior you will no longer tolerate. Over time, this consistency teaches people how to treat you because they learn that your standards are not temporary reactions, but permanent principles. A lack of boundaries often begins with the desire to avoid conflict. People may remain silent when they are disrespected, agree to unreasonable demands, or repeatedly forgive behavior that continues to harm them. They convince themselves that keeping the peace is more important than protecting their own well-being. Unfortunately, this approach rarely earns respect. Instead, it often encourages others to continue crossing the same lines because there are no meaningful consequences for doing so. Every time you tolerate repeated disrespect without addressing it, you unintentionally communicate that your standards can be ignored. Firm boundaries are not about controlling other people. You cannot force someone to change their behavior, but you can control your response to it. If someone repeatedly lies to you, ignores your limits, or treats you without respect, your boundary may involve limiting contact, ending the conversation, or choosing not to continue the relationship. These decisions are not acts of revenge. They are acts of self-respect. Healthy boundaries focus on your own actions rather than attempting to control another person's choices. Consistency is what gives boundaries their strength. If you sometimes enforce your standards and other times ignore them, people become confused about what you truly expect. Calmly responding the same way each time a boundary is crossed creates clarity and builds credibility. Others begin to understand that your principles remain stable regardless of the situation or your emotions. Strong boundaries also improve healthy relationships. People who genuinely care about you may not always agree with every limit you set, but they will learn to respect them because they recognize your honesty and consistency. Those who become angry simply because you protect your peace often reveal that they benefited more from your lack of boundaries than from your friendship. By setting firm boundaries without unnecessary conflict, you preserve your dignity, strengthen your confidence, and create relationships built on mutual respect instead of fear, obligation, or emotional pressure. One of the most powerful ways to respond to disrespect is not through anger, revenge, or endless arguments, but through continued personal growth and meaningful success. Many people believe they must immediately defend themselves whenever they are underestimated, criticized, or treated unfairly. They become consumed with proving others wrong, winning debates, or seeking recognition from those who never appreciated them in the first place. While these reactions may satisfy the ego for a moment, they rarely produce lasting results. True strength is demonstrated by remaining focused on your purpose and allowing your achievements to become the answer that words never could. Success has a unique way of changing conversations without saying anything at all. People who once doubted your abilities often begin to see you differently when your consistent effort produces undeniable results. This does not happen because you argued more effectively or demanded respect. It happens because disciplined action creates evidence that cannot be dismissed. A reputation built on integrity, hard work, and perseverance carries far greater influence than one built on emotional reactions or constant self-promotion. Choosing success as your response also protects your emotional energy. Every argument, every attempt to convince someone of your worth, and every effort to gain approval from those determined to misunderstand you takes time away from your own progress. That same energy could be invested in learning new skills, improving your health, strengthening your relationships, expanding your knowledge, or building something meaningful. When you redirect your attention toward growth instead of conflict, you begin transforming painful experiences into motivation rather than allowing them to become permanent distractions. This approach does not mean pretending disrespect never happened or refusing to stand up for yourself. There are moments when calm, direct communication, and healthy boundaries are necessary. However, once you have responded with dignity, continuing to argue rarely creates additional value. The greatest victories often happen quietly, through consistent improvement, rather than dramatic confrontation. Your character becomes stronger, your confidence becomes deeper, and your life moves forward while others remain trapped in negativity. Over time, meaningful success changes the way you view disrespect itself. Instead of seeing every insult as something that requires your attention, you recognize that your future is too valuable to be controlled by someone else's opinion. You stop measuring your progress by whether critics change their minds and start measuring it by the person you are becoming. This mindset creates lasting confidence because your focus remains on building a life of purpose, discipline, and integrity, allowing your achievements to speak with a strength that no argument could ever match. Knowing when to walk away in silence is one of the highest forms of emotional strength because it requires wisdom, discipline, and complete control over your ego. Many people believe that every insult deserves a response, every accusation demands a defense, and every disagreement must end with them, proving they were right. This way of thinking often leads to endless arguments, emotional exhaustion, and damaged relationships. Truly powerful individuals understand that not every battle is worth fighting. They recognize that some conflicts offer no meaningful reward, and the greatest victory is refusing to waste their time and energy on situations that cannot improve their lives. Silence is often misunderstood as weakness, but in reality, it can be a deliberate expression of confidence. When someone insults you simply to provoke a reaction, they are seeking emotional control. They want to see frustration, anger, or desperation because those reactions give them influence over your emotions. The moment you respond impulsively, you begin playing a game that was designed by someone else. Choosing silence in these situations is not surrender. It is a decision to remain in control of yourself instead of allowing another person's behavior to determine your actions. Walking away also protects your reputation. People are constantly observing how you handle pressure, criticism, and disagreement. A person who remains calm while others become emotional demonstrates maturity and self-discipline. On the other hand, someone who argues over every insult often appears insecure because they feel compelled to defend themselves against every opinion. Quiet confidence communicates that your identity is not dependent on winning every argument or changing every person's mind. There are also situations where walking away creates space for better opportunities. Time spent trying to convince someone who has already decided to misunderstand you is time taken away from your own growth, meaningful relationships, and important goals. Wise individuals understand that attention is limited, so they invest it where it creates value instead of wasting it on endless conflict. They choose progress over proving a point because they know that a meaningful future is built through disciplined action rather than constant confrontation. Walking away in silence does not mean avoiding every difficult conversation. Healthy relationships require honest communication, accountability, and respectful disagreement. The difference is recognizing when a conversation has become unproductive and when continuing it serves only to satisfy pride. By knowing when to leave without bitterness or revenge, you preserve your peace, protect your dignity, and demonstrate that your self-control is stronger than your desire to win. That quiet discipline becomes one of the clearest signs of true power because it shows that your future matters more than your ego and your purpose matters more than temporary conflict.